So what we're going to do now is we're just going to take you through sort of a thought exercise. The last video was all about the timing of triggers. This time I'm trying to get closer to what we're trying to do with an audit trigger. So imagine over here on columns A and B, I've got a table which I'm going to call regions, and it's got region ID, region name. This is a classic example pulled right out of Oracle's training schemas, the HR schema in particular. It's a pretty simple table. And what I want to do is I want to basically, let's imagine I've got two users. I've got DCTC Grant, and I've got DCTC Fred. All right, so I got two users, and they're going to be editing the data. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to basically say, let's imagine that Grant comes along and they add a new column. So it's basically add 5, and they call it Grant Land. Well, over here, so this is new, so let's just highlight it, being new. And so over here, this new one, what I want to imagine is that the actual event of adding a column will trigger some code. We'll get a key that gets incremented. The when would be something like now, and right now you can't. I don't know if you can see my clock or not, but it's 2:27. Let's just do 27 Feb 2022. That'll be basically the now, and there would actually be time and all that on it. The who is Grant, so there's that. The DML is an insert, so that would get inserted. The region ID is now 5. The old doesn't exist. It didn't exist before then, so this would be nothing. And the new would be Grantland. So that's basically how an insert would work. Now let's imagine that Fred comes along and changes Asia to, I don't know, Fred's going to take it over. So Fred's going to call it to Fredland. Okay, so he's changed Asia to Fredland. So that would trigger an event. This would go 2. He's doing it at the same time. Let's just say it's me. It's Fred. He did an update. The region ID is 3. The old version was Asia. And the new version, that is Asia? Yeah, I think so. And the new version is Fredland. Now let's imagine that someone comes along and wipes out, or Grant comes along if you want, and wipes out this field. Now I'm trying to think, is there a quick way I can get to the format here? I just want to format and strike it out. So I'm going to do this format and font and strike through. That's what I'm looking for. Boom. All right, I'll even color it maybe red or something. So basically that gets taken out, right? The whole thing. So what happens here is that would trigger an event 3. It would have today's date. Grant did it. It's a delete. The region ID is 4. It is, boy, what was it? Well, it was Middle East. And of course here it's going to look a little bit gross. So I'll tell you what, let's just do a quick little like that. So it's Middle East and Asia. And now it is in fact nothing. That's the kind of processing we're going to get to. Now, in order for us to really get through and understand this a little bit more, this video right now is going to focus on basically the creation of this table, and then we're going to manually control and insert. We're going to be using a procedure with parameters. That's what we're going to be doing. So if I was to go now to my SQL developer, I did actually go through a script like this in the class. So let me just kind of copy it. Just this part. Yeah, it's just that part. And let's paste it in here. And let's talk about these. So these two things are going to basically try and drop the tables. If they didn't exist, they'd look like errors. I can demonstrate that right now by saying drop, and they look like errors. Big deal. This guy here is going to create the region table that you see right here. It's going to create this region table. So we just go, and it creates a region table. Right here, these are going to be inserting those values. If I go, they all insert those values. And tell you what, let's have a new tab for a second here, and I can go select asterisk from regions, and you can kind of see what those values are. There they are. And then these are comments. I just like to do that Yeah, I just like to do that just to kind of add some comments to it. One thing I forgot to bring up, by the way, is that region ID here. I'm using basically a kind of a cool way to do a primary key. This basically creates an auto num kind of functionality, and that's why you kind of see 1, 2, 3, 4. I never really have to specify, nor should I really specify the surrogate key when I'm inserting. It'll basically just do it for me. So that's what that's doing. And then down here, the history table. You'll see this is exactly, or near enough anyway, exactly the same kind of structure that we have over here. You've got the key, a when, a who. I think instead of R, it's regions, but regions when, regions who, regions DML, and then a copy of the regions table, which has got the ID, but it's going to be ready to take an old name and a new name. And that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing basically the surrogate key, when, user, the type, region ID, old and new. So let's get that in there. And let's go. Okay, so that's the setup that we kind of need. And feel free, if you want to, screenshot, snip or whatever, you can, all this code you can theory do yourself. And this code can be pretty well done in almost any relational database. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to basically get ourselves ready we're going to force, we'll just, excuse me, we'll force this insert to happen. Remember, whatever the change happens here, it triggers an event, and that event triggers a procedure. The procedure will basically be inserting a row. So we're working on basically an insert statement. I'm going to copy this just so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to move it over here and just dump it in there so I can just get the data, what I'm looking at, right? Now, we're going to insert into that table. So the way the code works is you go, starting with just an insert into that. And then remember, we want to specify the columns. Now, actually, I think, we could do this the gross way, but another way we can do this right here, here's region sys. I'm going to click on it. It's going to pause for a second while it tries to figure out stuff. I don't really care what it's doing. I'm going to click this guy, bonehead, and drag it over. And notice I'm dragging over, and if I let go, it says, what do you want to do? I can do an insert. If I click on an insert, it does what I'm basically wanting it to do. It's insert regions table, specifies the columns, values, it specifies a bunch of what I would call bind variables. We don't have to worry necessarily about what a bind variable is. We'll be seeing it soon enough, actually, in the next video. So now, V0, V1, V2, V3, V4, that's basically what these values are. So I'm going to basically take this V0, I'm going to say this is 2. I'm going to take V1, I'm going to go sysdate. I'm going to take V2, and that is basically Fred. Fred is a string, so we do that. V3 is an update, so 3, that's the DML type. So let's put update in a string. This guy is Asia. Oh no, sorry, region ID. Region ID is 3. 3. Now this guy, the old one was Asia, and then the new one is Fredland. Now this won't work, but it'll be worthy to see why it won't work. So let's go ahead and do the insert. I go. Now it's mad because I'm using what it calls an identity column. So right away, it's mad because it's saying you can't basically stick in this number 2 into a column whose value I'm basically controlling. It's that key that's generating 1, 2, and 3. It's saying I can't basically insert 2. So it's like, okay, that sounds good. I tell you what, remember, if you don't specify it, and you don't specify it, now what's going to happen is that when I do the insert, whoops, down here, sorry, this is the identity column. But anyway, when I do the insert, if I don't specify it, it's just going to basically, the database will control what the next key is. So let's go ahead and run it. Bang, that guy had no problem. But we can get a little bit more efficient than that because we have other defaults. I have a sysdate and I have a user. Those are 2 defaults. So that means I don't really need to specify when user. I can basically leave that out too. So if I leave that out and I go insert, it's got no problem. And what does it have going on in there? If we go select asterisk from my history table, and I go, what we see, thank you, is you can kind of see that now, notice I'm not Fred, I'm Grant. So it automatically filled that in, And notice that the key is sort of under now the control of the database. Pretty cool. This is likely the insert we want. For now, we are going to eventually make that a little bit more automated too. All right, so cool beans. Let's make this now into a program. Right now, this is a statement. To make it into a program, all we must do is go put a begin and then an end around it. Then if you're me, you're going to want to basically indent everything. And there is actually a cool way to do this, but I can't remember what it is. I'm just going to do it the gross way. I'll just feel a twinge of shame, and all I'm doing here is I'm hitting the space bar 3 times to basically line everything up. All right. Thank you very much. Now notice when I do this, this block will now update. Notice instead of saying one row updated, it's going to do something totally different. It's going to say procedure successfully completed. What successfully completed? Oh boy, I'll tell you what, let's just go here, look at the data. The update successfully completed. All right, so there's that. That's awesome. Now this is a procedure. However, notice what we've got going on in here is we've got a bunch of hard-coded variables. And so what I've been trying to indoctrinate you on is that you should not have variables or values hard-coded showing up in your execution section, which is from the begin up until either the exception or the end. So what we need to do is we need to basically have a nice little declaration section, declare, and then say what these things are. Now, typically what I like to do is I like to basically name it after the variable. So this is going to be V region type. Okay, let's get that in lowercase. V region type. Right now, I'm just going to go on a straight copy here, and then I'll actually fix these in a minute. So V underscore that, and then I'm going to go copy and paste V underscore that, and I'm going to go copy and paste V underscore that. All right, so there's that. Now, what are these things? Well, this is a DML type. It's going to be a varchar 2. I'm just going to say 30. This is going to be region ID. There's going to be a number. Region name is also going to be varchar 30, we'll say. And then this guy's also going to be a varchar 30. Now, this thing will run just fine, right? But it didn't really do much. All I did is it declared a bunch of variables that it didn't actually use. So what I want to do is I want to make sure these values are in it. So I'm going to go, this guy, DML type, is assigned update. This is assigned 3. This is assigned Asia. And this is assigned Fredland. Now, at this point, it's not going to do much good because I'm still not using them, but at least they're declared. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically say, hey, don't just put a string in the middle of my execution section. This is going to be the DML section. This is going to be ID. This is going to be the old name. And then this is going to be the new name. Now we are cooking with gas, so much so I'm going to put a number 2 there, and we're going to go. And so now this is a little bit more useful as I start to look at here and I refresh my data. There's Fredland 2, right? Beautiful, beautiful, efficient database processing. All right, awesome. So that really is making it now into a block. However, this block doesn't live on the database. There's no procedure here with that block in it. Oh, that's interesting, but that's another story. What I want to do is I want to change this now to make it a procedure. I'm going to go create. In fact, I'm going to overwrite the procedure I've got out there. I'm going to go create or replace procedure. And this is going to go for regions. So I'll just, yeah, exactly. This is what I call it, DML. As. So notice the word declare is removed. And what you get is you get basically the header of a procedure. Create or replace procedure as. And please remember, I'm just teaching you enough to get your face slapped in PL SQL. I'm trying to head you towards a trigger. There's plenty of other applications for PL SQL besides triggers. So I'm going to go, and now notice that it changes again. No longer are we getting inserted. We're not getting procedure successfully completed. Now we're being told that this thing compiled because now it exists here on the database. And what we'll see, I hope, is a clean region HIST program, which exists now fully on the database, which is awesome. And if you wanted to run it, you'd go begin. And then you'd actually just simply call the procedure name, semicolon, end. And this thing will now actually do the insert for me. Great. If I go over, oh, I should have, yeah, well, whatever. We'll have two region twos. It's kind of what we're going to see here. Here's two print that twos. Awesome. Now, remember, that's awesome, but here's what we want to do. We don't want to have variables that are hard-coded. We want to basically make these things into parameters. And so what you're going to see is I'm going to end up taking these variables, I'm going to push them in front of the as, and they're going to basically get moved into the header section. And then I'm going to, so I'm going to basically make them parameters, and then I'm going to use the parameters down here. So I'm going to go cut, and we're going to go paste. Now, immediately, this is going to create syntax errors all over the place because it's not the right format. Very much like a table creation, you need to have your parameters in parentheses. Very much like a table creation, you don't have semicolons, but you have commas. Now, that is sort of syntactically correct. And what's happening now, by the way, that's just not, it's not quite syntactically correct yet, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But this would be almost like saying that the defaults are these values. I'm going to get rid of the defaults. Yeah, because I had them up here, so I don't have to remember any of them. So I'm going to get rid of the defaults. So delete, 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 and delete. So I've gotten rid of the defaults. By the way, this is the last comma. Of course, I don't need the last comma, so I can get rid of that. Now, the only other thing that's making this kind of a little bit gross is that I've got a varchar 230. I can't constrain the data types of parameters. They have to be left just basically, well, unconstrained. So I can't say this is going to be a maximum of 30. I'm just basically saying I'm getting a varchar. I'm getting a varchar. I'm getting a varchar. If I had a number, 5, 2 or whatever, I could do that. I'd have to just basically say a number. Now, this is pretty cool, but it's kind of bad form. At this point, parameters have different modes. They can come in, so they can get information in, they can pass information out, or they can take information in, change it, and come back out. So there's 3 modes. For this trigger, or the procedure that we're going to be using the trigger, all I really want to do is I want to make them in. They're inbound parameters. Now, because they're coming in, well, first of all, let me compile and make sure that we're doing okay. Yeah, so we're still doing okay with this attack. So, but this is a bad name for an inbound parameter. This is just a Grant Spencer choice. I've definitely seen it in books and stuff like that. Plus, I've used it myself in my own code. I would change all these things to I's because, because I want to indicate that they're in. I go I for in, O for out, and then IO for in out. But now that I've done that, by the way, these variables are defined, so this is going to definitely blow chunks. So I want to basically make sure this thing is set to I as well. And there we have it. So now if I go, this thing will create the procedure. Is great. Now the question is, how do you use it? So let's grab this and put it closer so I can see it at the same time. So now basically what I want to do is when I try to just run this by itself, it's going to get mad at me. It's going to get mad at me because it's going to say, dude, you aren't using the right number of arguments. I'm expecting 4 and you aren't passing me any enough. So what I need to do is I need to pass these in. So I'm going to copy, open, close, paste it right there. And so what I'm doing is I'm passing update, comma, I'm passing a 3, comma, I'm passing an Asia. Oops, something bad happened there. Not sure what. Yes, there it is. Passing Asia. And I'm passing Fredland 3. Fredland 3. All right, so this guy is now a procedure that will basically, we'll be using in the trigger. So when I run that thing, notice, and I do a quick run, there's Spreadland 3. So this is the procedure that the trigger is going to call. And now we are finally set up for the climactic conclusion in the next video, where I'm going to basically take that timing, which was in here. So before, we're going to stick it in a row level trigger, and that row level trigger is going to call a procedure called region hist, and we're going to be able to start passing in the old and the new values. It's going to be awesome. So that'll be the next stop.